Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk a little bit about what it's like communicating in a foreign language and how to grow your confidence when you are communicating and doing various bits of interpretation or museum work or heritage work, and you have to communicate in a language that's not your own, because I think there are two things to this. One thing is actually speaking and communicating in another language. The other is actually growing your confidence in using that language. And I would like to use a few personal examples as well. I was born and raised in Denmark, but not brought up bilingual. I learned languages in school, so very much in a classroom setting. And there is a very big difference between actually learning to use a language in a classroom and going out there in the real world and using it for real. And that's some of the things I would like to address today. As always, if you like the content of these videos, please like them, subscribe to the channel, and add your comments. It's always great to hear from you. I would like to start with a bit of a personal story, something that happened not long ago when I was taking a walk in one of the London parks, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and there was a father sitting with his little daughter. She can't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, on the grass, and he had brought sort of various entertainment, a frisbee and some balls and something. And as I came closer, I noticed that he was talking to the girl in Danish, which is my native language, so I recognized it. And it's not so unusual. You come across people from all over the world in London. And there was a lady with a dog approaching them, and the dog became very interested in the little girl's frisbee, and she threw it a couple of times, and the dog fetched it, and they had a bit of an interaction between them. And the lady talked to the father for a bit. And what I noticed was this little girl automatically switched to English, and she chatted with the dog and the lady for a bit, and when they left again, she turned to her dad and just automatically switched back to Danish, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, which I'm sure it was for her. But I couldn't help but think that apart from the fact that it's such an amazing gift to actually bring your children up being bilingual, it's also very much a matter of giving them the proper sense of confidence in using that language. I remember when I first moved to Scotland about 10 years ago to pursue a PhD, I came to a very international environment, which was a great help because all sorts of languages and accents were spoken. But one thing is actually having learned a language in a sort of classroom setting, or in a setting where you can always prepare before you have to either speak or write in the language. Another thing is actually using it on a daily basis, because it's not really in a classroom that you learn to use a language. It's when you have to get on a bus and you have to argue with the bus driver about a ticket discount, or it's when you banter with the checkout lady at your local supermarket, or it's when you have to go into a bank and open a bank account, which is just some of the many practicalities that you have to take care of when you're moving abroad. It's in all those daily situations that you actually learn to use the language. And I think even though I had been using English for many years at that time, it still took me the better part of a year to sort of get over that tiny little bout of nervousness that was always there when I had to do something that was different, or I had to use services or ask people for something in English, even though I felt I knew the language very well. I've also seen colleagues back in Denmark, even though they know English very well and they use the language all the time, they do guided tours in English, they do lots of writing in English. Suddenly, if they have to communicate with a native speaker, you can always tell when they become very self-aware, or suddenly feel a bit shy about using the language. I think we've all been in situations like that, where suddenly you feel like you can't really say properly what it is you want to say or communicate what it is you really want to communicate in that situation. Now, there are many contexts, of course, where we might use a foreign language. Of course, if you, like me, if you move abroad and you start either studying or working, as I do now in the UK, obviously you're going to have to use the language. But it can also be if you're in your home country and you're doing guided tours, you're doing lectures, you might be communicating with international visitors, you can be answering queries via email, for example. It can also be situations like meetings. I remember, especially when I had to chair some of the first meetings I chaired in my work in the UK, it was actually a little bit daunting because sometimes you know that there will be items on an agenda that will spark a bit of discussion, and you have to be the one who is summarizing everything and wrapping everything up, but also making sure that everyone gets heard and everyone feel they have their say in a meeting. And that alone can be a difficult job, but doing it in a foreign language is even more daunting. And of course, there can be situations where you are studying and you're using a foreign language there as well. A few things I have discovered about growing confidence is, and I know this is so obvious, but practice, speak up. Sometimes just talking to yourself home alone when you are cleaning up or something, tell yourself what you're doing in whatever language you're using. It's an immense help. When you talk to someone, use your body language, especially use eye contact, because you can always tell if you have lost people, if they don't follow you anymore. Also, actually using your body language in an open way can actually help that communication. Another thing is use extra words to clarify. If there is a word that you don't know or you can't remember, you've simply forgotten, use other words to specify what it is you mean. You have the advantage when talking of using as many words as you like, so you can essentially just go on forever if you want to, but really try to explain and clarify what it is you mean, and I guarantee you people will pick up on it, people will understand you. Also, practice listening. I think especially when I moved to Scotland, the English I had learned in my classroom was English. It was not Scottish. So suddenly I had to tune my ear into a very, very different accent and a different way of using the language. I remember I even started to pick up certain Scottish words and sort of add them to my vocabulary in English. And when I came to London to work, no one really used those words, so I sort of had to modify them, or some of them even get rid of them. But the thing is, when you're speaking in a language that's not your own, you tend to copy what you hear, I find, much more than you do in a language you are much more confident in. And of course, there are so many different variations of English alone, but I know back from Denmark, we have many different accents as well. So tuning your ear in to a specific accent and a specific way of using a language is quite important as well. So really practice listening. Also, try from time to time to think about how you can control the speed of a conversation. Sometimes, especially native speakers, and especially if they're eager to tell you about something, they speak very quickly. And I know you probably do as well in your own language. If there's something that you're really keen on communicating, try if you can to slow down deliberately, because it makes it easier for you to pronounce the words, and it also makes it easier essentially to understand you. Now, if you have conversations that you don't feel go particularly well in everyday life situations, in work situations, study situations, whatever, don't feel down. Don't get depressed about it, because even in your own language, you will from time to time have conversations that don't actually go very well, and you feel a bit like you haven't really understood each other here. So don't feel down about it. In most cases, it's not actually about you or your language abilities. Also, another thing, don't be afraid of ums and ahs or pauses like that. I think sometimes we're so afraid when communicating, especially in a foreign language, of awkward pauses or silence. Don't be afraid of that. It's a natural part of a conversation, and it's actually sometimes making it more trustworthy, because it shows that you are thinking about the next thing that you want to say. And also, this is a really obvious one: let go of perfection. It's never going to be perfect. I've been living, working, studying in the UK for a long time now. I will always have an accent. I will always make mistakes grammatically and in my pronunciation, because it's not my native language. Even in Danish, which is my native language, I make mistakes all the time. And I think it's just a way of communication, especially with verbal communication. Languages changes so quickly, and they're constantly use of slang words or different use of expressing yourself that pops into a language from time to time. It's never going to be perfect, but that's absolutely okay. The main thing here is you are communicating in a foreign language. You have learned how to communicate in a foreign language. So embrace that. It's going to open so many new doors, not just in terms of communicating with more people, but also in terms of your own tolerance and perspective. You can read books, you can talk to more people whenever you're learning a new language. And it's a huge gift. And I think that's sometimes worth to remember, especially when we might not feel so confident about using a language. What's your experiences in using a foreign language? How have you gone about it? How do you grow your confidence when communicating? It's always great to hear from you, so please let me know your perspectives on this.